next speaker is a person who I have been told that he has really won the hearts and minds of the constituents who have been worked very, very hard and made a lot of friends in Walthamstow. And many people have said to me that they are really sorry to see him go. Please welcome the
Thank you. And looking around this hall, actually seeing it, I can see all the people I've known in this area for a long, long time who I do regard as friends. And okay, I'll be retiring from Parliament in a few weeks' time. It is just a few weeks now. That must mean I'm going to move away and disappear, so I'm sure I shall see all of you again. And I just want to say as well, a little thank you to both Peter and Keith for coming here this evening, because these are two people who in Parliament and outside Parliament for years and years and years have done some tremendous work in confronting people like the BNP, in standing up for equality, in arguing for the sorts of policies that I think every one of us in this hall would like to see put into place. I'm really grateful they've taken the time to come here this evening. Now, there's nothing new about politicians on the far right. You know, I've been here a long time. I can remember in the late 1970s, early 1980s, when we had the National Front active in Walthamstow. You know, in 1977, in the GLC elections, they got 11% of the vote in Walthamstow. You know, that was not insignificant. They beat the Liberals into fourth place. But what was done then was the sort of campaigning that needs to be done now. And we saw them off. You don't see the BNP very much around Walthamstow anymore. You know, they stood once in the 4 elections that I fought here, and they got 1% of the vote. And we don't see much of them in local elections either. But that doesn't mean we should forget about them and ignore them. You already heard about Barking and Dagenham and the problems there. And it's not just a question of winning the parliamentary seat in Barking. There's a real danger that if the work isn't done, that the BNP will either come close to or might even win control of a local authority. And that would be an absolute disaster, not just for Barking and Dagenham, but for the whole of this country actually. Certainly for the whole of East London. And so I think for those of us in East London, you know, it really is important that we give every support that we can to the people who are going to be doing that campaign in Barking and Dagenham, and make sure that the BNP do not get a foothold there. But I think the other thing that we've got to remember, you know, we've got an election to win. We've got an election to win in Walthamstow. We've got to make absolutely sure that Stella is elected. We've got to make sure that we win this election across the whole country. And to do that, it's not just a question of negative stuff about the BNP and saying we don't want the BNP. We've got to be going out as well, being positive about our record and about what we've done. You know, and if you look, for instance, at the sort of legislation that is there on equality, on discrimination, every single piece of legislation that exists and has existed for 40 years about race relations, about equality, about discrimination, is because a Labour government brought that legislation in. Every single piece of that type of legislation. And what we've done over the last 12 years, you know, I've disagreed with the government on important things. I voted against Iraq, and I'm glad I did. But I know very well. What a Tory government or a Tory minority government propped up by the Liberal Democrats would look like. And I know what would be a risk from either of those things happening. You know, the investment that we put in education. You know, you look around this constituency, every single secondary school in this constituency has either been completely rebuilt or refurbished. That doesn't happen by chance. Those sort of things happen because you have a Labour government that's been prepared to invest. And that investment that's gone in But not just the money, the other things that we've done. Some of you, I'm sure, will remember 10 years ago, 12 years ago, the primary purpose rule. We call that. It meant that if you married someone from another country and wanted to bring your husband or wife here, an immigration officer would say, I believe, I've decided that the primary purpose of you not to come entering into this marriage is to go to the UK. Just refuse me. And people got quite randomly refused on that rule. And we've put in place the measures to deal with racially motivated crime, the requirements on public bodies as far as institutional racism is concerned. You look at this town hall now, compare it with what it was like 25 years ago. I can remember when I became leader of the council in 1986, and you walked around the corridors of the town hall and you did not see a single face, or hardly a single face, that was not a white face. And that's changed, and it's changed because we've had Labour councils in Waltham Forest prepared to put equality of opportunity into action. So, we've got to go out there with a positive message about what we've done and about what we stand for. We are a party that is about equality, but it's about equality of opportunity. That's about bringing good race relations to every part of this country. So yes, we've got to keep the BNP out. We don't want the BNP anywhere in East London. But let's go out there with that positive message as well about what we have done and what we want to do in the next 4 or 5 years.